Welcome to our deep dive, you guys, into this amazing world of cells and genetics. I think you're going to love this one. Get ready to explore the tiny universes that are inside of you, because understanding them is really the key to understanding what makes you, well, you.
It's so true. It's funny, we often just take for granted. The sheer complexity that's happening inside us every second. Trillions of cells, each one a microscopic marvel, and they're working together constantly to keep us alive and kicking.
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let's kind of break this down a little bit. We hear cells are the building blocks of life, but what's the deal with that analogy?
Well, it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Imagine building a skyscraper. You need those individual bricks, right? Cells are like those bricks. They form the structure of all living things, from the simplest bacteria to a complex human being.
But I'm guessing not all bricks are created equal, right?
Yeah, you're right. There are two main types. Prokaryotic cells, which are simpler and lack a nucleus. Those are like bacteria. And then eukaryotic cells, which are more complex with a nucleus and other specialized structures. You and I, along with all plants and animals, are made up of these eukaryotic cells.
Okay, so I'm a walking, talking collection of trillions of these eukaryotic cells. Oh, that's a lot to process.
It is. And here's where things get really mind-blowing. Each of these cells is like a tiny, bustling city with different compartments working together in this incredible harmony.
Okay, so I'm picturing like tiny streets and buildings inside my cells now. So what's happening in this cellular city?
Well, you've got the nucleus that contains our DNA. It's like the central library. It holds all the blueprints. Then you have the mitochondria. Think of them as the power plants that supply energy for the entire cell. And then ribosomes are like the construction crews. They assemble proteins according to the DNA's instructions.
It's fascinating how much is going on at such a tiny scale. So the DNA in the nucleus is basically the instruction manual for building and running a cell and thus an entire organism.
It's exactly. DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. It's often called the molecule of life for a reason. It carries the genetic code that determines everything from your eye color to your predisposition to certain diseases.
Yeah.
And the structure of DNA itself is remarkable. It's a double helix, like a twisted ladder with each rung representing a specific code.
And each cell in our body has a copy of this entire instruction manual.
That's right. Think of it like this. Every cell has the potential to build an entire you because it contains all the instructions needed. Of course, different cells specialize, so they express only the genes that are relevant to their function.
That's incredible. So what exactly are genes, and how do they fit into this whole DNA picture?
Genes are segments of DNA that code for specific traits. They're like individual recipes within the larger cookbook of your DNA. And the complete set of these recipes, your entire genetic makeup, is called your genome.
So if my genome is the cookbook, then individual genes are recipes for things like, let's say, my curly hair or my love of spicy food.
Well, not quite for spicy food preferences. Those are more complex. And they involve environmental factors too. But you've got the right idea. Genes determine a lot of our physical traits. And they can also influence our susceptibility to certain diseases.
Okay, this is where my mind is officially blown. But genes aren't just floating around in isolation, are they? I mean, how do they get passed down through generations?
You're talking about heredity. One of the most fascinating aspects of genetics. You have characteristics of both your parents, right?
Hmm.
That's because you inherit half of your DNA from your mother and half from your father.
So it's like a genetic mixing bowl, combining traits from both sides of the family.
Exactly. It's why siblings can look so different even though they share the same parents. The combination of genes they inherit is unique.
So that explains why I got my mom's stubbornness and my dad's sense of humor. But what about this fact I read? That humans share 99.9% of their DNA with each other. If that's true, what makes us all so different?
That's the incredible thing. That tiny 0.1% difference accounts for the vast diversity of the human race. And even within that 0.1%, there are certain genes with variations that have a huge impact on our individual characteristics.
Wait, so there are specific genes that make us who we are. Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. Take the FOXP2 gene, for example. It's been dubbed the language gene because variations in this gene can impact our ability to form complex speech and language. A slight change in this gene can literally mean the difference between someone who's a gifted orator and someone who struggles to communicate verbally.
Wow, that's incredible. A single gene can have such a profound effect on our lives. But hold on, if our DNA is so important, what happens when something goes wrong with it?
That's a great question, and it leads us to the fascinating field of genetic disorders. Sometimes mutations occur in our DNA, changes in the sequence of those genetic letters. These mutations can be inherited or can occur spontaneously, and some can lead to diseases.
So are all mutations bad?
Not necessarily. Some mutations are harmless, Some can even be beneficial, driving evolution. But others can disrupt the normal function of genes, leading to a wide range of health issues. Cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, and Huntington's disease are just a few examples of genetic disorders caused by mutations.
That's pretty sobering. But this also makes me think about all the amazing advances in genetic research. We hear about things like gene therapy and gene editing. Are we getting closer to actually fixing these genetic errors?
It's an exciting time to be following this field. Gene therapy, for instance, holds the promise of treating or even curing genetic disorders by replacing faulty genes with healthy ones. And gene editing technologies like CRISPR allow scientists to literally edit the DNA code, correcting mutations at their source.
That sounds like something straight out of sci-fi movie. But with such powerful technology, aren't there ethical concerns? I mean, where do we draw the line between treating diseases and, say, enhancing human capabilities?
You've hit on a crucial point. Gene editing opens up a Pandora's box of ethical questions. While the potential for treating diseases is enormous, the idea of using it to create designer babies with specific traits raises serious concerns about social inequality and the very definition of what it means to be human.
Yeah, it's definitely a complex issue with no easy answers. But shifting gears a bit, I've been hearing a lot about personalized medicine lately. How does that relate to genetics?
Personalized medicine is all about tailoring medical treatments to an individual's unique genetic makeup. This means analyzing a person's DNA to predict their risk for certain diseases, diagnose conditions more accurately, and even develop customized drug therapies.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, we're moving towards treatments that are specifically designed for each patient. That sounds revolutionary.
It has the potential to be. Imagine a world where doctors can prescribe medications that are most effective for you based on your genes, minimizing side effects and maximizing treatment outcomes. We're not quite there yet, but the field is advancing rapidly.
This is all so fascinating. But can you bring it back down to earth for me? How does understanding cells and genetics affect me in my everyday life?
That's a great question. Even without getting into complex medical procedures, having a basic grasp of these concepts empowers you to make informed decisions about your health and well-being. For instance, knowing that UV radiation can damage DNA might make you more diligent about sun protection.
So it's about connecting the dots between our lifestyle choices and our health at a cellular level.
Precisely. Understanding how your body works on a fundamental level helps you appreciate its resilience, but also its vulnerabilities. And it allows you to make choices that support your well-being, now and in the future.
Yeah, it really is like suddenly you're seeing the world in this whole new light, you know? Knowing that there's this intricate dance of cells and genes and it's happening inside us constantly.
It really makes you appreciate the incredible complexity of life,
Yeah.
and the more we kind of delve into this microscopic world, the more we uncover these connections to things that you might not expect.
Like what? Give me an example.
We'll take the gut microbiome, for instance. You might think of bacteria as these simple organisms. But the trillions of bacteria that are living in our gut, they have a profound impact on our health. Everything from digestion to immunity and even mental health.
Hold on. You're telling me that the bacteria in my gut can affect my mood? That's wild.
It's true. Research is showing that the gut microbiome plays a role in producing neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers that influence our emotions and our behavior. It's a fascinating example of how these seemingly unrelated systems in our body are all interconnected in these surprising ways.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that in understanding cells and genetics, it isn't just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding this interconnected web of life itself.
Exactly. It's a holistic perspective. It's about recognizing that we're not just individuals, but like these ecosystems, constantly interacting with the world around us at both the macroscopic and the microscopic levels.
This has been an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground. From the tiny factories inside of our cells to the implications of gene editing. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with something to ponder.
Ooh, I love a good thought experiment.
Yeah.
What do you have in mind?
Well, we talked about the vast potential of genetics research, but also the ethical challenges, right? So, dear listener, here's a question for you. Imagine a future where we have the technology to not only cure diseases, but to also enhance human capabilities. Would you alter your genes to maybe boost your intelligence, your physical abilities, or even your lifespan? And what implications would those choices have on society as a whole?
It's a question that really forces us to confront our values and our beliefs. What does it mean to be human in an age of genetic manipulation? Where do we draw the line between therapy and enhancement? These are questions we all need to grapple with as we navigate this uncharted territory.
It's a reminder that science doesn't exist in a vacuum, you know? It's
Yeah,
intertwined with ethics, philosophy, and the very fabric of our society.
absolutely. As we unlock the secrets of our genetic code, it's crucial that we engage in these thoughtful and open discussions about the implications of these discoveries, because the future of humanity is in many ways written in our genes.
Wow, that's a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cells and genetics. It's been a truly mind-expanding experience for me.
The pleasure was all mine. Remember, keep those questions coming. Stay curious.